Hey everybody, it's Curse, and today I wanted to share with you my Season 3 start plans. Now, as I mentioned in my last video, unfortunately, I won't have as much time to play this season. I'm not season starting minute 0 when servers open. I will have to go to work that day, and I'm not taking any time off, unfortunately. I just cannot afford to right now. And so I will be playing in the evenings. So that means I won't have as much time. And because of that, I'm also changing strategy on what build I'm choosing. I'm going to choose a pretty simple build, easy to gear up, easy to play. We're opting for easy mode, something smooth, something to at least gear up future characters and to get us through that first playthrough. In order to do that, I have chosen to go with Assemble Abomination. That's what we're going to be running next season. And we're gonna go for, lo and behold, Heartseeker makes a return. And this time it's actually gonna deal damage. At least I hope so. Our preliminary math seems to indicate that this should be pretty damn good. So that's what we're gonna play, is Arrow Nova, or sorry, Eternal Arrow, which is going to recurve tons of times more than the recurves that you get from your Heartseeker on Marksman. And it's actually going to have insane damage multipliers that get us very solid, respectable DPS. So if you're interested, check out the build guide and irashaimase. All right, let's start with the skill setup. And before I get into it, there's only one caveat I'm going to mention. I am assuming that we can swap in Summon Wraith, Summon Bone Golem, and Summon Skeletal Mage for Dreadshade, Aura of Decay, and Bone Curse in order to cast those, summon those, and then gobble them right up with the Abomination and get these amazing benefits down here. There is this line of text right here that says, if your maximum allowed minions changes for a type that was devoured, the Abomination will be unsummoned. I'm not sure exactly what that means, and I'm not sure whether that will result in a situation where once we swap the Dreadshade and these two skills back in, that's going to unsummon the Abom. We'll have to test that out. If that's the case, we'll just have to pivot, keep it cool, and plow on. So assuming that's how things work, here's the Abom skill tree. You'll notice we have 32 skill points. I'll show you how to get that with the itemization. It's very doable. First of all, we have some massive damage multipliers on the bottom side. These are just too good to ignore. If you don't have enough skill points, you can always drop these 2 points. But other than that, we want to make sure we get Deadeye for the Eternal Arrow, and then Horrific Volley. Eternal Arrow's cooldown reduction of 1 makes it so that Eternal Arrow's cooldown becomes from 4 seconds down to 3 seconds. But it also gives us an Eternal Arrow recurve chance per absorbed archer of plus 100%. And the cap is 20 skeletons absorbed, and we're going to be hitting that cap. I'll show you how to do that as well. But yeah, we're going to be hitting that cap, getting 2,000 Eternal Arrow recurve chance. And by the way, if you remember last season, we made this little spreadsheet to calculate the exact effective damage from a recurve arrow based on how much extra recurve we have. The Heartseeker multiplier should be 0.8 as it was previously. So we have 2,000 extra recurve, which means that we are always going to get at least 15 hits with every single Eternal Arrow. And the damage distribution and then the total expected damage from a single Eternal Arrow is 1,730. So this is the effective, essentially this is your damage effectiveness for a single cast, especially against tanky single target enemies. It's quite powerful as a starting point once you layer in these extra multipliers, and there are quite a few in the Assemble Abom skill tree. After we get these vital ones, we continue on the right hand side, get extra 1.48 multiplier, and then extra 1.32 multiplier for damage with cooldown abilities. And of course, this has a cooldown. And also cooldown reduction. This is quite nice. We stack a lot of it. I'm hearing reports that you can only have a single Eternal Arrow out at a time. And so if that's the case, we need to be careful with what is the right cooldown recovery amount for our Eternal Arrow. So we'll have to just playtest that and see what works best. But yeah, you probably want to stack a bunch of cooldown recovery for your minions. Here's another 30 CDR for minions, and it comes with some health loss on ability use, but that shouldn't be a big deal because we have a lot of life leech on the minions. And so Assemble Abom, the other thing you want to notice is changing with this season is that it's no longer going to lose HP every single second. It's no longer going to decay over time. And that's a very big deal. It was extremely annoying to recast Assemble Abom. That lack of quality of life is one of the main reasons I never played this skill. So I've never ever dabbled into Assemble Abom. So I'm very happy to try it out this season. If I don't try it this season, I don't think, yeah, I'm more than certain it will not exist in its current state next season. I suspect nerfs are coming. So I'm going to enjoy it this season, try it out. And the playstyle is probably not the most exciting, not the most active, but it should be fun for what we're trying to do. And if you happen to have a lot of extra plus skills, let's say you're at least at 30, you can grab Spoils of War, and we'll just keep one skeleton in the skeleton skill tree to allow us to get double strike. The damage shouldn't be as much as from Eternal Arrows, but it's extra damage, so it doesn't hurt. The other thing you want to notice is Deadeye has bold damage per intelligence +1. Now we're going to be stacking it at least 150, maybe in a perfect setup, maybe something close to 200. But there is a quadratic scaling in this build where intelligence gives us both flat damage as well as penetration. And that's going to come from Aura of Decay. I'll show you in a sec. But yeah, you want to take advantage of that quadratic scale. Another option we're considering for Assemble Abom is going into the Bone Golem Stomp route. However, if you really want to take advantage of that, you probably want to go for Aaron's chest piece to get as many golems out, which then blocks summon skeleton, and then you can't take advantage of engorgement and death in the family. So it's a little bit awkward. Maybe you can do it without Aaron's armor as well. You have some options. It's an interesting setup that I think is worth trying because that stomp area is going to be ridiculous. It's going to be the better clear for sure. It definitely should be much better clear than Skeletal Archer and Eternal Arrow Absorption. And yeah, with the last 2 points, go for Domination, if you happen to have them. Aura of Decay is going to be, like I mentioned, an int stacking fizz damage reduction for enemies around us. The only downside, of course you have to have this, by the way, Blood Font to convert the poison res to fizz res. And the only downside is that we have to stack a lot of fizz res for our character to mitigate that negative fizz res per int. And then we just max out a little bit of extra fizz res negative to the enemies, extra areas so we don't have to be as close. And then 60 fizz res here from Aura of Decay as well. That's very important to keep in mind. As well as a bit of healing on our allies. It really probably is not too effective. The Dreadshade setup is another damage multiplier for our Abom. The biggest one is here, 1.6 damage multiplier, another one 1.4. 10% flat crit makes it a lot easier to hit our crit cap. 12 flat necrotic helps a bit. It doesn't benefit from the fizz res pen, but it's all right. Increased attack and cast speed is nice as well. We don't need the area because we're going to have really just one DPS minion. And then the last thing I want to hit is Scorching Brand, but for that we need 22 points. So if you don't have 22 points, you probably want to opt for something else. Or maybe you can drop a point or two from Lingering Doom and hit it that way. I think Haste on your Abom will make a pretty big difference in the new patch, because the minion AI improvements are going to make it a lot more effective of dealing damage with pretty high movement speed. Then we have Bonkers. Primary purpose here is a 1.5 minion fizz damage multiplier. Secondary purpose is Armor Shred, and then another purpose is a kill threshold, a call, and then maybe we get some bone armor. And then finally we have Summon Skeleton, which is just here to give you one warrior and then 6 or so skeletal archers, which you're going to gobble up with your Assemble Abom. And by the way, we have Immortal, which gives us 40% skeleton resummon chance, together with this chest, which gives us another 46, another passive here, 24, which makes it over 100% chance to resummon every single skeleton that dies. And that makes it a lot easier to get 20 skeleton archers absorbed by the Abom. So that's why we opt for this one. Get all the +1 skeletons that you can, and then get a bit of damage for your skeletal archers if you choose to use them with the Assemble Abom. Another option is to take them out of the skill bar and put transplant instead, because they're probably not going to deal too much damage. They might be nice for armor shred, but other than that, they're not going to do too much. So that's basically the skill setup. Now, in terms of items, you'll notice I'm trying to go for a bit of a cheaper setup. I dropped red rings, which in the ultra late game, you probably want to run red rings, but I'm going for early end game here. This is what I want to get to in the early end game. This set gives us a lot, and it's just trivial to find. It is so easy to acquire. So you can see 33 all res, plus 2 minions, plus 2 curse skills, a bit of block effectiveness, and all resistances to minions can give them some survivability as well. The shield gives us curse cast speed for bone curse casting, minion critical strike avoidance, which by the way is valuable because egoism gives the minions a 10% higher chance to be crit. Curse cast speed, very nice. Block chance, a bit of survivability from this shield as well. And of course, the chance to resummon skellies to get that chance up to 100%. Very nice shield overall. Extremely simple to acquire. That's the primary reason, together with the high value that we get from this set. Then in terms of boots, as I mentioned, we're stacking int in order to hit that quadratic scaling. And Blood of the Exile are pretty easy to find. This is probably one of the more expensive items I have here. If you're just working with a 1 LP setup, you can just take tier 7 int and drop the tier 5 MS. Unless you feel too sluggish, then of course you can do tier 7 MS. You're just losing some DPS. It's personal preference, whether you want MS or int here on a 1 LP Blood of the Exile. That's up to you. And then we have a Phantom Grip, which is a pretty decent minion ring here that we can utilize. Plus 2 minion skills for a skill like Abom, which benefits so greatly from plus skills and gives you so many multipliers in the skill tree. It's solid. 4% minion flat crit helps us get that crit cap easier. If you happen to have 2 of them with tier 7 and tier 5 phys res, go ahead. These rings are also something that you're going to get a lot of on your way to red rings. So as you're spamming prophecies for unique rings, you're going to get a bunch of these. So I figure it's a good transitional items on your way to red rings. And remember, we need a lot of phys res to mitigate the minus 150 int. I've overdone it here. You definitely don't need this much, but you're also not going to hit tier 5 phys res in every single item that I have put tier 5 phys res in this setup right here. If you have extra slots, opt for health. Likely is your next best option for a lot of these chest and helmet slots, for example. And worst case scenario, if you need extra phys res, you can use your blessings as well. Now let's cover the relic. Tyrant Skull. One of the main reasons we're using it is for the plus 3 to minion skills. If you couple that with plus 4 to Abom, that is plus 7 Abom skills. Absolutely ridiculous. Not to mention that it gives your Abom plus 25 phys damage for your bow attacks and melee attacks and spells, everything. And it gives them an additional phys pen, attack speed, cast speed as a function of dexterity, extra melee damage as a function of strength. So those are not going to be very significant. But a tiny bit of phys pen doesn't hurt too much. Just keep in mind that it is very diluted because of all the phys pen that we get from our Aura of Decay setup. I've put this unique belt mostly for the 20 int, and then you can slam some survivability like health or hybrid health, whatever you find. For amulet, we've opted for the brand new amulet Evolution's End. Again, plus 2 to all skills, 15 all res, 10% MS. Even the 6 attributes, 40% minion damage. These are just solid stat lines. Probably easily get 1 LP for this amulet given LPL of 50. I'm not sure what the Rift Beast is going to accomplish. But even if you ignore that Rift Beast stuff, everything else is just in line with what we would want on our character. So this is a solid amulet if you happen to find it. I don't know how easy it's going to be to acquire the relic and the amulet. But if you don't have them, just go for plus skills, plus 4 to assemble album, anything really. Gloves, we're opting for tier 7 int, minion damage, phys res, hybrid health. Similar with the ring int. The second prefix, the options are not amazing. I opted for strength to get a little bit of extra armor. Then Fizz Res Health for the suffixes are probably ideal. Chest piece, tier 7 int. I mean, tier 7 int everywhere, as you've noticed already. And then we want to make sure we hit our reduced bonus damage taken from crit strikes cap. So make sure to get that in the chest and helmet. And then Fizz Res if needed. And critical strike chance for minions. We don't have too many sources of that. So you likely want that in your chest. Possibly in your helmet as well, if you're not crit capped for your Abom. So consider both of these prefix slots for crit capping. That covers all the itemization that we have set up here. For relics, I've opted for some pretty straightforward choices here. Percent health and minion increase cooldown. I mean, for what we're running, this is an insane value relic. The only question mark is how much minion cooldown recovery speed do we need to take advantage of Eternal Arrow and to not run into situations where we're overlapping or deleting the first Eternal Arrow when we cast a second Eternal Arrow with the Abom. So that's something to play test and figure out what works best. I think these have suffixes that are ward retention, but also health. So you have good options for these. You can go percent health, can't go wrong with that. Just survivability. So we have 4 of these with percent health and minion cooldown. Then we have some percent health elemental res, flat health and fizz res if your fizz res is not capped. And then percent health elemental res. You have a bit of flexibility with these smaller idle slots. Just fill up your res and make sure your res capped on everything. For blessings, we have survivability all around, flat health, ward per second, all res, armor. So pretty simple on the blessings. Now let's go over passives. Here we have int stacking as much as we can get. So we have a bunch of int here, and then some ward retention and a bit of miscellaneous resistances, minion attack and cast speed, and then vit and minion health. On the lich front, we need to unlock Aura of Decay, and the best way to do that is just by stacking a little bit of extra int. We already want int. For the Necromancer's passive tree, we have int flat health. Then we want to unlock an extra skeleton, but also getting that 24% summon skeleton resummon chance. That's the primary reason we opt through the year. It also doesn't hurt to get a bit of extra minion health, just to help with survivability. And then we unlock the armor shred. We do get armor shred through Bone Curse. So if this ends up proving to be very low value, we can consider dropping these 11 points. I think that's something I'm going to have to test out. We just have to check how many armor shred stacks we're getting against single target enemies with the Abom. This 3-point bonus of minion health per vit as well as minion armor per int, given how much int we're stacking, I think it's a pretty good value. It also gives vit for the main character as well, just to tank up a bit. Here in Towering Death, we're looking for the shared reduced bonus damage taken from crits. This helps us get to that 100% for the main character, really, because minions are already crit immune. But it also gives them minion stun immunity, should help a little bit. Gives us a bit of health and armor. Not too bad. Bit of stun avoidance as well. Minion flat crit is pretty high value just to get minion crit capped. And then minion attack and cast speed. Character cast speed as well. That's worth noting here. Minion crit chance. And then minion critical damage leech does health. So our minions are going to be nicely topped up. Then crit multi. Int and vit together with minion crit chance per int. This is one of the primary ways we're going to be hitting a crit cap for our minions. With 150 int, that makes a massive difference. It makes it so much easier given that we're already running 20 flat crit without the unique ring. So this is going to increase that basically from 20 to 50% crit given 150 int. And then we have extra survivability down here with Tyrant, 24% increased health. The reduced minion health is negligible because it is additive with sources of increased minion health. So it's absolutely irrelevant. And finally, we have 2 extra points, Cling to Life. No big deal there. If you can scrounge an extra 18 passive points, you can consider getting this 8-point investment into essentially 16 extra int. Given how heavily our character stacks with int, it's something to consider. But again, it's an 18-point requirement to get there, plus 10, plus another 8 to invest in it. We could get 7 from here, 2 from here, so that's 9. So we're pretty close. We could get another 9. If we end up making the call that armor shred is not required, at least not this much, you probably want to get there. Just because this also gives you VIT, similar to this one. So they're a little bit interchangeable. You get similar outcome from both of them. You also get a bit of ward per second phys res, necrotic res from spirit ward. So there are valuable nodes along the way to get to this point. It used to be that Lich had some really bad early nodes here for Necromancer, so it was very difficult to make the call to invest so much just to unlock this extra int. But I think I'm definitely going to be keeping this in mind, the possibility of investing a bit more in the Lich passive tree and getting an extra 16 intelligence. So that's kind of like the early end game itemization that we're looking for. Like I mentioned, make sure to switch into red rings in the Giga end game. For Amulet, you have a bunch of good options. You can do Nihilist. Even Death Rattle is a good option. 65 million crit multi and 10 int. Very, very solid option. For the weapon and shield, I'm not sure that I would want to swap these two out. Just because they make life so much easier. On the relic slot, you could also opt for the new relic that gives you extra effect from your idols. It's going to give you more survivability than the current setup, but you would lose 3 to all minion skills, which it's not ideal, but it's something you can work with. So those are a few options. In terms of leveling, I'm thinking of going all in on phase damage minions. So I'm probably going to run summon skeletons, and I haven't tested this, so don't necessarily take this as the way to level. Like I said, I'm not racing this season. I'm not trying to be top 10 or whatever, top anything, because my start is going to be so slow. So I'm just going to take it chill, enjoy minion playstyle, and probably not care about too much. So I'm thinking summon skeleton, going for primarily archers without opting for fire arrow because I don't want to convert to fire damage too much. And then bone curse, making those summon skeletons deal 50% extra damage, and getting a bone golem as well. Unfortunately, bone golem, unless you're proccing the spell by constantly spamming rip blood, you're not going to get too much mileage out of it, but it's all right. It's going to be a good time. I think I'm mostly going to rely on summon skeletons early on, empowered by bone curse. So I'm going to rush for merciless. And then as we unlock Dreadshade and assemble Abom, we will replace the bone golem with probably the Abom, and then eventually spec into Aura of Decay. As soon as you unlock Abom in the Necro passive tree, you want to invest 10 points in Aura of Decay, in Lich passive tree to unlock Aura of Decay before going back to the Necro passive tree. Just because Aura of Decay is likely going to roughly double your damage with 85 int, you get double damage. And it's pretty easy to get it. You just need 5 and another 5 passive points. And then you can start mitigating all those downsides with these points down here. But yeah, we need 20 plus 40 plus 10 passive points to get all those skills unlocked. That's 70 passive points. You should be able to hit that just before level 60, probably around level 57, 58, I would guess. And then you can start ramping into endgame monos. I'm probably going to play through chapter 10 as well, so I'm not going to be rushing this time. Timing works out. I get to enjoy chapter 10. But anyways, here's some preliminary math on the Heartseeker damage. Given 250 flat damage, 1730 effectiveness against a single target with a lot of health, an increased damage multiplier of 10x, so that means 900% increased damage from various gear. That includes your 150 int, by the way. We should be able to get way more than this, by the way. 290% critical multiplier. And then this is the fun part. Penetration of 1.25, which is just assuming a mark for death. If you can get 150 int, this jumps to 3x multiplier because of the Aura of Decay. And then your DPS starts getting a little bit too crazy. Armor Shred multiplier, we're assuming 1.7. 1.8 is probably realistic here, by the way. We're being a little bit conservative here and there. There is a multiplier for minions 1.6. That's just a default multiplier on top of some default multipliers for Abom of 1.6, as well as If you consume 20 minions, you get a 2x multiplier. Dreadshade gives us a 1.6 and a 1.4 multiplier. Bone Curse, another 1.5 physical damage multiplier. And then we get into the Abom skill tree multipliers, 1.6 from Domination, 2x from Engorgement, 1.6 from Death in the Family, 1.4 at 1.32. This is how you get some crazy damage. I'm sure you can get this to 100 million. You can see that it's very much doable. If you get your int to 200, get your increased damage a bit higher, this is very much 100 million viable. And those are pretty crazy numbers. And keep in mind that that is from a single Heartseeker or, Eternal Arrow cast, a single cast. The only downside is potentially the reports that we're hearing that you cannot have 2 Eternal Arrows flying around at the same time. That's going to reduce the effectiveness of this skill quite a bit, but at the same time, I still think it should be very reliable. For comparison, we spec'd out a rough stomp idea. Now, keep in mind, there are a few options you have there with running arrows, chest piece. This option here is without that, with just 1 bone golem eaten. If you make it to 2, and by speccing into the Abom skill tree, into the bone golem skill tree, it can go up a little bit. But overall, I think the higher DPS numbers are going to come from Heartseeker or Eternal Arrow, whatever you want to call it. So there you go. That's the plan for next season. I hope you enjoyed this build guide. And by the time I log in on Thursday, I think all of you are going to be level 100. So come by, tell me what works and what doesn't, because I'm going to be starting, 8 hours behind, something like that. I hope to see you on Thursday. If you enjoyed the build guide, drop a like, drop a subscribe. Either way, thank you very much. Take it easy and go ciso. Sama deshita.